Presentation of offerings by the priest with the object of propitiation named. 1. With a complete and sacred offering, I offer and I give this meat offering, and with it, Ha'ur Batat, who guards the water, and Amerit At, who guards the plants and the wood, and the flesh of the kine of the blessed gift, for the propitiation of Ahura Mazda, and of the bountiful immortals, all and for the propitiation of Sarasha, obedience, the blessed, endowed with sanctity, who smites with the blow of victory, and who causes the settlements to advance. 2. And I offer the Ha'ama and Ha'ama juice, with a complete and sacred offering for the propitiation of the Favasha of Zarathustra, Spitma, the saint, and I offer the wood billets with the perfume for thy propitiation, the fires, O Ahura Mazda's son. 3. And I offer the Ha'amas with a complete and sacred offering for the propitiation to the good waters, for the good waters Mazda made, and I offer this Ha'ama water with scrupulous exactness, and with the sanctity and its fresh milk, and the plant Havana Epata, uplifted with a complete and sacred offering for the propitiation of the waters which are Mazda made. 4. And I offer this Berisman with its Sa'atra, and with its binding, for a girdle spread with complete sanctity and order for the propitiation of the bountiful immortals, and I offer with my voice the thoughts well thought, the words well spoken, and the deeds well done, and the heard recital of the gathas, the matras, well composed and well delivered, and this lordship, and this sanctity, and this ritual mastership, and the timely prayer for blessings, with the complete and sacred offering for the propitiation of the holy Yazads, heavenly and earthly, and for the contentment of the individual soul. 5. And I offer to the Asnya with a complete and sacred offering, as lords of the ritual order, and to Havana, and to Svanga, and Visya, holy lords of the ritual order, and to Mithra, the wide pastures, of 1,000 ears and myriad eyes, the Yazad of the spoken name, and to Raman Vastra. 6. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Rapithwina, the holy lord of the ritual order, and I offer to Thradat Pchu, and to the Zantuma, and to Asha Bahista, who is righteousness the best, and to Ahura Mazda's fire. 7. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Uza Ge Ivrana, Frodat Vira, and to the Da Vyuma, the holy lord of the ritual order, and that lofty Ahura Nipat, Apam, and to the waters which Mazda created. 8. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Awis Ruth Rima, the life furtherer, and to Fradat Vispam Hugya Ete, and to the Trotema, and to the Favashas of the saints, and to the women who have many sons, and to the prosperous home life which endures without reverse throughout the year, the force, the well-shapen and stately, and to the blow which smites with victory Ahura given, and to the victorious ascendancy which it secures. 9. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Ushahena, the holy lord of the ritual order, and to Beragya, and to Nemanya, and to Sha'asha, obedience, the blessed, endowed with sanctity, who smites with the blow of victory, and makes the settlements advance, and to Rashnu, the most just, and to Arstat, who furthers the settlements, and causes them to increase. 10. And I offer with the complete and sacred offering to the Mahya, lords of the ritual order, and to the new and waning moon, the moon within, and to the full moon which scatters night, holy lords of the ritual order. 11. And I offer with the complete and sacred offering to the yearly festivals, the lords of the ritual order, and to Ma'edhio Zerameya and Ma'edhio Shema, to Pa'etish Ahya, and to Aya Therma, the furtherer, the breeder, the spender of the strength of males, and to Ma'edhya Irya, and Hamas Pathma Daya, holy lords of the ritual order, and I offer with sanctity to the several seasons, the lords of the ritual order. 12. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to all those lords who are 33, who approach the nearest round about our Havana, and who are the lords of Asha, the ritual by eminence, of righteousness, who is the best, whose observances are inculcated as precepts by Masta, and uttered forth by Zarathustra. 13. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Ahura and Mithra, the lofty and imperishable, the holy two, and to the stars which are the creatures of Santa Ma'inu, and to the star Tisturia, the radiant, the glorious, and to the moon which contains the seed of the cattle and its beams, and to the resplendent sun of the fleet horses, the eye of Ahura Mazda, and to Mithra, the lord of the provinces. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Ahura Mazda, the resplendent, the glorious, who rules this day, and to the Frabashis of the saints, who name the month. 14. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to thee the fire, O Ahura Mazda's son, together with all the fires, and to the good waters, even to the waters which Mazda made, and to all the plants which Mazda made. 15. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to the Matra Spenta, the holy, the effective, revealed against the Da'avas, the Zarathustrian law, and to the long descent of the good religion of the Mazdiastian faith. 16. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Mount Ushe Darena, the Mazda made brilliant with holiness, and all the mountains shining with holiness, abundance, brightness, in which Mazda made, and the royal glory, unconsumed and Mazda made. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to Asha Vengohe, and to Keste Vengohe, and to Eretha, and to Rasastat, and to the glory and the benefit which Mazda made. 17. And I offer with a complete and sacred offering to the good and pious prayer for blessings of the pious man, and to that Yazad, the swift and dreadful curse of the wise. 18. And I offer with a complete and sacred blessing to these places, districts, pastures, and abodes, with their springs of water, and to the waters and the lands, and the plants, and to this earth, and yon heaven, and to the holy wind, and to the stars, and to the month, even to the stars without beginning, to their course, the self-appointed, and all the holy creatures of Spenta Ma'inu, be they male or female, regulators, as they are, of the ritual order. 19. And I offer with a complete and sacred blessing to that lofty Lord, whose righteousness the best, and the day lords, the lords of the days during their duration, and to those of the days during daylight, and to the month lords, and the year lords, and to those of the seasons, the lords who are lords of the ritual, and at the time of Havana. 20. And I offer the Yazda meat offering with a complete and sacred offering, and Ha'ur Batat, who guards the waters, and Amerit At, who guards the wood, and the flesh of the kine, a blessed gift for the propitiation of Sir Asha, obedience, the blessed, whose body is the Mathra, him of the daring spear, the lordly, the Yazad of the spoken name. 21. And I offer the Ha'ama and the Ha'ama juice for the propitiation of the Fravasha of Zarathustra, Spitama, the saint, the Yazad of the spoken name, and I offer the wood billets with the perfume for thy propitiation, the fires, Ahura Mazda's son, the Yazad of the spoken name. 22. And I offer the complete and secret offering to the Fravashas of the saints, the mighty and overwhelming, to those of the saints of the ancient lore, and to those of the next of kin. 23. And I offer the complete and secret offering to all the lords of the ritual order, and to all the good Yazads, heavenly and earthly, who are meet for sacrifice and homage because of Asha, who is the Hista of righteousness, who is the best. 24. May that approach to us, and with a sacred blessing, O Lord, whose benefits the offerers are seeking for, thy praisers and Mathra speakers, O Ahura Mazda, may we be named, we desire it, and such may we be. What reward, O Ahura Mazda, adapted to myself thou hast appointed unto souls. 25. Of this do thou thyself bestow upon us for that world and for that of mind. Yea, do thou bestow so much of this that we may attain to thy ruling protection and to that of righteousness forever. 26. We sacrifice to the Ahuna of Area and of the veracious word correctly uttered, and to the good and pious prayer for blessing, and to the dreadful curse of the wise, the Yazad, and to Ha'urvatat and Ameratat, and to the flesh of the kine of blessed gift, and to the Ha'ama and Ha'ama juice, and to the wood billets, and to the perfume for the praise of the pious, and good prayer for blessing. The Yen Tom 27. To that one. Of beings do we sacrifice, whose superior fidelity in the sacrifice of Ahura Mazda knows through his righteousness within him, yea, even to those female saints do we sacrifice, whose superior sanctity is thus known we sacrifice to all, both males and females, whose superiority is such, the Ratu speaks, as an Ahu revered and to be chosen. He who is the Za'atar speaks forth to me, the Za'atar. So let the Ratu from his righteousness, holy and learned, speak forth. Now, family language, we've pointed that out before. That's not literal. But prayers and blessings and sacrifices upon these, the following things we're not mentioning, as if all these creations are deities or something. But we're joining in the righteousness. Is like those who are worthy that we haven't named. Well, that may include us someday, and that's the goal, right? Anticipated struggles and prayers for champions and defenders. We are at 665. 695. So let me hold on here. So verse 6, for she will grant us pleasing homes. The Pahlavi seems to be rendered as comfort here, using kvari in that sense. So the Pahlavi correctly indicates by its arzuk. Our Yung Sang has pri ataram in the place of longing prayer and the plants to flourish. We have compare Yasna 51 verse 7, Are the plants here mentioned as in connection with Aramaete in her figurative association with the earth? And we might want to turn to verses 1 or 2 of what we've talked about, and plotting against the foe or against the blow. Well, yeah, it's about the actions and beliefs, you could say, more than, the entities themselves that one's striking against the enemy. Because it's like, well, what if they're converted and, Yasna 29, verse 1. Sorry about that. The Pahlavi translator here renders Padirak e Arashak, while in Yasna 29, verse 1, he renders e Reshkun. The variations are probably not real. The renderings, referring to some forgotten differences of text, are, as often he may have anticipated, modern freedom and changed his text, that is, rendered it as if changed to a seemingly more intelligible form. So, in a throng of similar cases, this is the only rational explanation of some of his errors. He was able to render, and has rendered, most grammatical forms in different places. The Pahlavi, in the place, in verse 7 here, the refuge, has, however, Navida. Did he read Vidyam in itself? A very possible test. And later, in the next verse, the potent prayer, verse 8. Compare Emma Vantem a Eshem, also Peresa Na'u Ya To'e Ehma Parsta. Observe that the Pahlavi translator distinguishes the two senses of Iste in Yasna 46:2. He transcribes the Gathic word, the Persian rendering Hazana. Naryosang has Pun Yal Ak Shmim. Here, however, he has Kadar Lak A'u Harmazd Zak-e Sapir Kva Isen E Kudayi. And then we would maybe draw the Holy Rain, compare verse 5. And later in the verse, thy great order, Asha may certainly equal a Ka here. So Bartholomew, if the constant and intentional repetition of the name and the idea of Asha as the personified order would not have caused confusion. The Pahlavi translator renders a word towards the end there, while I myself live, which occupied the place of Gabaro by Yaksen Un Idari. Naryosang, following as to the root freely as to form, he, however, renders related forms elsewhere. By live, our only safe conclusion is that he had a different word from the Gabaro before him in his manuscript. Well, maybe he thought that's what it meant, not in the literal sense, but in another sense, and change to sight, we would compare Yasna 28, verse 6. And so the griefs, very far from him, certain that we do not seriously blunder and are following the indication of the Pahlavi here. And we have remarks from Yasna 32, verse 16. And for my delights, good minds, are let me enjoy as my own, but mo is difficult. Ukam might otherwise be a first-person form in the sense of the Vedic. Uk, Bartholomaw's third singular imperative is also, of course, well possible, but were not the originally abnormal third singulars in Am duha sayam vidam, taken over from third plural subjective. Am, really equaling the nasal sound merely. Compare also the Indian Adrisram, Abudram, Esrigram, the Zend, Vavas Zirem, Vavaz Iram, Vavaz Iran. Tradition has the Pahlavi Zivisni. Now Yosang has Givitam. The Persian has Zistan for Ukam, as if rendering enjoyment, experience of life. Am equals Tam is a more difficult one to find. And we compare Vapus, otherwise with the Pahlavi, in the Working Grace in verse 9. Knowing the destruction of evil, which Bohuman works, Siesna 29, verse 6, where the rendering of the Pahlavi is supported by the previous verse. And we draw a comparison, the perfection coming in verse 10 there, with Yasna 46, verse 3, Kada Mazda Fra Rente Sao Shantam Kratavo. And the drunken, they shall drive from hence. Compare Yasna 32, verse 15. And the drunken joy is soma intoxication here referred to, and was the ha'ama worship in abeyance at the time. The Pahlavi seems to have understood magic here, and in the evil sense, that is, judging from the perhaps later gloss. Aside from the gloss, however, the Pahlavi may well have been, nay, more probably was, intended to be read. Madi, us, being equal to Madahya. And so zeal would crush us. As to this word, we cannot do better than following Juste. Although his work is now a score of years old, the Indian Prapas, in the sense of deceit, has also been compared. The last Pahlavi translator was probably confused by finding this word, as so often divided in his manuscript. He rendered as best he could, or rather, he handed down the shattered documents or oral teachings of his predecessors with his own too often lame additions, the whole mass being rich in the relics of the truth. And we see verse 5, the evil rule, and we piety together with verse 11 here. Mat following Asha shows that we may have the preposition poe mat. And further on in that verse, with pastures. As Aramaete here is spoken of as having pasture, that is, as inspiring the thrifty husbandmen who cultivate the meadows by irrigation or drainage, she became herself associated with those meadows, and so later with the earth, Siesna 47, verse 2. And shall give us quiet. Amen to that. The Pahlavi sees in Ramam enforced quiet not from, but to the wicked, who shall deal the finishing blow to the wicked. And so the Pahlavi Shnasinidari, and so we go on. mental keenness, verse 12. Oh, that's what we had. And so we have a word that doesn't simply mean a band, as one may suspect a relation of root with Phanean. The Pathali has expressly and freely bad tomb here, and Vimari in the next verse, with a like word in Yasna 30, verse 6. An enemy may have been roughly dubbed the polluted or even the diseased one. Analogous occurrences are not wanting. And so the reverses and hosts, honor to Fruscia Astra and other chiefs. Okay, Bendba in verse 1. Benba has ever fought with me. So we move on through righteous zeal. I cannot agree to rendering Asha really. When applied in an evil sense, the sacred word may mean really when applied to the righteous, but then in that case, the reality indicated has an element of sanctity in it, and that of no low order. I am also not aware that Ratenna is applied in an evil sense in the Rig Veda. The use of Asha, like that of Bahumana and Kshatra, etc., is obvious in the Gatha. These 6 sacred words were, like the theme of a symphony, brought in at every opportunity with all shades of meaning, from those proper names to those adverbs, with slight change of text to a nominative. We might render, he who seeks to please the evil-minded, O thou. And then we compare Yasna 33, verse 2, to the vengeful, in verse 20. And then we have my sorrow, in verse 1-2. I cannot agree that Arapa should be read as Rapa for the sake of a syllable in the meter. The line has more than 11 syllables here, as the Vedic Trishtup often has. Moreover, the ancient writing before the Pahlavi translator read likewise Arapa, and the sense demands it. And instead of for me, may I obtain, and Benva's death, Yasna 53, verse 9, and then as we open the first, refer to the first verse. And in the second verse, later on, we have strengthened for this land. I would gladly accede to a subjunctive second singular intensive here in a causative sense, but a third singular precedes and a third singular follows. I cannot therefore recognize a subjunctive in a precative or imperative sense here. I think the word is a nominative, as its position in the verse corresponds well to that form. It may mean delivering against us many a wound. And so receiving from it, and we have this land. Okay, a good mind hath he axed. Compare Yasna 44, verse 13, and compare Yasna 30, verse 2, to the religious choice of the next one. See, these battles that we talk about here, our last lost battle, the next verse, see Mazisto in the first verse. We're not talking about battles to force people to, believe and practice different religions than they are. The Pahlavi, Moon, Re, Sheen, Ed, Lavan, Droog is in the place of her wounds. And I abjure, which would be the Pahlavi translator gave us our first rendering here. Can't find a comfortable seating position here. Pahlavi translator gives our first rendering here. Andarg, Harvisp, Gun O, Darvandano, Min, Ham, kaki andarg yamalelunam igmin dosti e levatman valmansan gavidak yehevunam. And the Pahlavi has Areshko, or envy, in the place of her Rama, and whose will and wish, okay, not wheel, I'm used to saying wheel so many things. The Pahlavi gave us our first surmise as to the general meaning of Vas. It renders Kamak. And we have R by that which is the evil faith, and it is the wicked's faith. Okay. And in verse 5 we have our fatness. The Pahlavi translator gives us our first general indication. Here as elsewhere he has Shirini and Karpi. Reading Mazda'u, we have Mazda is our source of abundance and refreshment. And the fourth verse is referred to when we're talking about the envious wrath. Because remember, wrath on the other side of obedience. The Pahlavi has a wise citizen in accordance. However, Kup, Shana, Saki, I differ with hesitation, possibly views may be harmonized. And Mathra speaks to tell me in verse 6. Wait, is it that one? Yeah. Compare Yasna 29, verse 3, where Asha answers, I cannot well accept Mru'ete as an infinitive. Geldner has keenly pointed out that Fra Esya is inclined to unite with an infinitive, but so are other forms of Ish and Vas. Moreover, the infinitive does not so naturally fall to the end of the sentence in Gathic or Vedic. See the above note on Yasna 34, verse 1. If an infinitive is insisted upon so long since, let us at least bring the word into more usual shape, using the Pahlavi translator as in one of his most valuable offices as an indirect evidence where his translation is at fault. As a rendering, he has Frazo avo zaki lekum frameyem ur harmaz va ashavahistok ra'i Yamal el Lunam. He had Mudreb for him, which might be less of an infinitive.